Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we're going to be doing a full face of nothing new. I think this video idea was started by Ali Glines. If she didn't start it, I know she does it quite a bit on her channel, and I think it's actually a series on her channel. So she's definitely the person that I got this idea from. So basically, I'm going to be pulling out a bunch of makeup that I'm very familiar with, stuff that I've used quite a bit, but I'm going to focus on things that I haven't used in quite some time. So there's a couple of things here that I use pretty much every single time I do my makeup. So there are things that I have used recently, but most of the stuff that I'm going to be using today are things that, again, I'm very used to them, but I just haven't used them in a long time. So we're going to use all of those products and I will show you how I did this look for today. So before we get into the video, if this is your first time here, welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Please make sure you subscribe while you are here today. And if you do subscribe, please let me know in the comments so I can see who you are and so that I can say thank you. I would be very grateful if you decide to join my channel today. And of course, for those of you who are returning to my channel, welcome back. Thank y'all for coming back. Thank you so much for your continued support. Okay, you guys, let's jump right into it. So a lot of y'all know that I don't wear primer all the time, but I am going to wear one today because I actually have one that kind of fits into the category of what we're doing for today. So this is the Touch in Sol No Poreblem primer, and I used to use this quite a bit actually when I first got it because I just love the way it feels on my face. I'm only going in with a little bit today though, and I'm going to concentrate it like on the sides of my nose, kind of like my T-zone area. I love the way this feels on the face because it does create like a really smooth base, but it still like helps your foundation kind of stick to your skin. I feel like a lot of primers that feel like this, they kind of make your makeup slide, but this one is really good at like smoothing your face out and helping your foundation stay on your face. So I like to take like the residual primer and just go like all around my face, but put the most of it like on the sides of my nose and my forehead. So I stopped using this not only because I don't wear primer all the time, but also just because I got other things that I've been playing around with here and there. But this is definitely like an old favorite. Like if I do want to play around with primer, this is one that I will pick up from time to time, but it's been a minute since I used it. So that's why I picked it up for today. And for my foundation, so I did kind of use this in a recent video. This is the Too Faced Born This Way original foundation. I recently did a video where I tested out, actually no, that wasn't what the video was about, but in a recent video, I can't even remember what that video, oh, I did a cool tone makeup look, that's what it was, and I wore these two foundations mixed together. So this is the original mixed with the matte, and I mixed them just to see like what the finish was going to be. So I did kind of use this one recently, but this is going to be the first time in a very long time that I'm going to be using this by itself. So I am the shade Maple in this foundation, and this used to be like my favorite everyday foundation. This is the one that I would reach for the most, but when I tried the Fenty hydrating foundation, that might have been like a good 3 months ago now, that basically replaced this Too Faced foundation as being like my everyday foundation. So that's why it's been a minute since I've used this one on its own, but I used to just love this foundation. This is definitely like my most repurchased foundation, like since I kind of really got into makeup. And it's kind of weird like applying with a brush because I feel like, I think this is the first time in a long time that I've applied foundation with a brush, because that Fenty one I prefer applying it with a sponge. So that was like a pump and a half of foundation, and I think that's good enough for today. I usually don't like full coverage. Like with this amount of coverage, like I can still see some stuff coming through the foundation, but this is pretty much all that I want. Like I would prefer just less foundation, even though you can kind of still see some scars and stuff underneath. But no matter how much foundation I'm using, I do always start it like right on the cheek area because that's where I have like all of my scarring and stuff. So I am going to be using the concealer that I use all the time. This is the Too Faced Born This Way Multi-Use Sculpting Concealer in the shade Mocha. So I'm always complaining about not finding a whole lot of concealer options for my skin tone and my skin shade, I guess. But I think my next video is going to be a haul video because I do have makeup coming that I ordered. It'll be here tomorrow. So that's most likely the next video that I'm going to upload. And I'm excited because I actually ordered 2 concealers to try out. And I'm very excited about one of them. Like, I'm pretty confident that one of them will work for me. And I can't believe I didn't think to try the concealer that you'll see in that video. I can't believe I didn't think to try that one a while ago. And then there's another one that I'm gonna try. I'm so excited about the formula of that one, but I'm not too sure if the shade match is gonna work for me. But I'm just excited because it's been a while since I have tried out like other under eye concealer. So that will most likely be the next video that you're gonna see. Makeup that I bought mostly from Ulta, but I have a couple of like indie brand makeup that I bought too. So I'm gonna put this second layer on, all the usual places. Okay, and then I'm gonna let the other concealer sit on my face. I'm gonna do my brows off camera and then I'll be right back and then I'll blend the rest of it out. And then I don't think I said this before I did my brows, but for those of you who may be new here, I like to do my under eye concealer in 2 layers. So I blend out that first layer with a sponge and then I like to go in with a brush on the second layer just to kind of maximize the coverage and then like keep it concentrated right where I want it. I just feel like that process just works a little bit better for me for my under eye area. And then I'm just going to smooth everything out with my sponge. So I like to take my sponge and just like pat it over the under eye area and pretty much just pat my sponge like anywhere where I've applied concealer, or rather wherever my concealer and foundation are meeting each other, just to like further blend everything in. Get rid of any lines of demarcation that I may have and just kind of like, you know, smooth everything out. So my setting powder is a real throwback for me. I have no idea when was the last time I used this. So this is the Maybelline Fit Me Loose Finishing Powder. I'm going to be using the shade Light. I can't remember, like, I just have no idea when I used this last. I feel like I talked about this in a recent video, but I think it's been a while since I've actually used it on my face. But I just want to show y'all what it looks like. That's the color of it here. And I think I'm going to use this just on the under eye, and then I'll use another powder on the rest of my face. So I'm just going to pick it up on my damp sponge and I'm just patting off like the extra powder on the back of my hand. And then I'm just going to use this to set the under eye. I feel like this is one of the best powders ever, and it's drugstore, so it's very affordable. I think it comes in like 6 different shades. So they have a few shades that are even lighter than this one, and then the deepest one is really nice and deep. The only thing about the deepest one though, it is red. Like, it's red to the point where I actually used to use that as a bronzer. So if you have more of like a warm undertone, but you have like a deeper skin tone than me, you may not like the deepest shade because it is kind of red, but it had this powder has a nice range of shades in it. So to set the rest of my face, I think I'm gonna go in with the Too Faced powder foundation. So all of my, well, most of my complexion products, except for this one today, is all from the Too Faced Born This Way line. I'm just noticing that. But anyway, I'm gonna go in with this to set the rest of my face. So this is just a powder version of the foundation. This is also in the shade Maple. So I'm gonna pick this up on a big fluffy brush. One thing I really like about this powder foundation, the way it's marketed, it's advertised as a powder foundation slash setting powder. So you can use it both ways. And I remember when this foundation came out, that's how I tested it. So I tested it as a powder foundation on one side of my face, and then I set the liquid foundation with the powder foundation on the other side of my face, and I think it worked really well, like using it both ways. But this one, the powder one, and I don't know if they added more shades since this came out. I don't remember how many shades this comes in or how many shades the liquid one comes in, but I know that this one comes in less shades. So in case you haven't tried this yet, but you might be interested in trying it as a setting powder, you may not be able to get like whatever shade you use in the liquid foundation foundation, they may not have this in the powder foundation, but if you're going to be using it like just to set your makeup, you could probably find another one that's closer to whatever shade that you wear, but just keep that in mind. This one just doesn't come in as many shades as the liquid one. So moving on to eyeshadow. So the two primers or concealers that I'm going to be using for eyeshadow today, these are ones that I pretty much use all the time. Sometimes I may take my under eye concealer and I'll just use that as an eyeshadow primer, like if I'm not doing anything like too fancy or whatever with the eyes. But I'm gonna go in with my staple products for primers. So this is the MAC Paint Pot in Painterly. This one is in the shade Painterly, I just said that. So I'm gonna use this kind of like on my lid area. I have no idea what I'm going to be doing with my eyes today. I already picked out the palette that I'm going to be using, but I have no idea like what shades I'm going to use. So I'm trying to think of that like in my head while I'm putting this concealer on. So again, for those of you who may be watching one of my tutorials for the first time, I like to go in with two different concealers on my lid area. So on the lid area, this is where I'm putting shadows that I really want them to pop, or I really want them to be like super pigmented. I like to use something that's lighter than my skin tone right here. And then toward the brow bone, this is the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer in the shade Chestnut. And as you can see, it's darker than the matte concealer and it's a little bit more skin tone for me. So I'm like really scraping the stuff out of here because I'm basically out of this. I just want to use like every little drop of it before I throw it away. But the reason I use two different concealers is because whatever color I'm going to put up here, like this is basically where I'm going to be putting shadows that I'm using to like buff the whole look out, or I'm using like something to highlight the arch of my brow. I just don't need the shadows like right up here to be quite as pigmented as what I'm putting on my lid. So I just feel like it's easier to blend eyeshadow over a concealer right up in here if it's a bit more skin tone. And maybe I don't even need a concealer up here at all. I could just, you know, blend it on top of the foundation that's up there, but I just like to do it that way. So okay, so for my eyes today, I'm going to be using the Lorac Mega Pro 4 palette. I know that I talked about this in when I did the eyeshadow palette tag video. I don't remember exactly when I used this last though. I think it was when I did a birthday get ready with me, so that would have been in October of last year. Wow, my birthday is like almost here. That's crazy. But yeah, I think it's like 2 months away, but still it's not like it's, you know, 6 months away, so to me that's kind of close. But I think that's the last time that I used this palette on my eyes. So this is what the palette looks like here, and I just have no idea what I want to do yet because I feel like this palette just has so many options. I used to like this. I used to use it a lot, but I do kind of get overwhelmed with palettes that are this big. Like I just feel like I'm looking at it for forever because I just have too many choices in front of me. So yeah, I have no idea what I want to do with my eyes today. So I keep looking at this shade here. Can y'all see that? This shade is called Lagoon, and it looks like a very deep, almost like a very deep, almost greenish, grayish color, and it does have a little bit of purple reflex in it. Let me show you guys a swatch of it. So this is the swatch of the shade Lagoon. I keep going back to that shade, and it looks like, well, before I swatched my finger in it, it looked like I never used this shade before. So I think I'm going to play around with that one today. So looking at the palette, I still don't know like what other colors I want to use today, but I do think I want to concentrate my look on this one. Ooh, that's pretty. So yeah, I'm just gonna pat this over most of my lid. Yeah, I don't think I've ever used this shade before. So I'm going kind of like just 2/3 of the way And I might bring that shade in a little bit more, not sure yet. Okay, so these swatches aren't the best, but I swatched out a few colors that I can't really decide between. So I feel like I'm gonna go in with this one here, the third one, and this is called Misty Mauve. Because I feel like the first shade that I put on my lid, it does have like a very subtle like purple or like plummy reflex. Maybe you can't make it out on camera, but I feel like a mauvey shade would kind of tie into that like purpley reflex on the first shade. So I think I'm gonna go in with this one here, the third swatch, that's Misty Mauve, and I feel like I'm gonna go in with the second one here. This one is called Silver Fox. I'll probably use that on my inner corner, but let's start off with Misty Mauve on the inner part of my lid there, and I'm gonna let this slightly overlap that greenish shade. Yeah, I think that looks really pretty. So I'm gonna do the outer corner first, and then we'll go back to the inner corner. So I'm going in with this shade here. This is called Blackberry, and it's like a reddish purple brown. So I'm just gonna start by tapping it on the outer corner. One thing I forgot about this palette, the formula of the shades, they're really soft. Like they're very similar to if you've ever used an ABH palette, they're like super soft. So I am getting some fallout on my face, but I'll clean that up when I'm done. And then I'm just going to also use that same brush just to buff out kind of like almost all the way into the inner corner. I'm also taking Blackberry on my lower lash line, just on the outer corner like I always do. And just going back to my blending brush, I'm just going to connect the two shadows together and just kind of like buffing it out around the edge. So I do kind of feel like on both eyes, that greenish shade that I have in the middle of my lid, I feel like it's kind of getting lost in some areas. So I think I'm just going to enhance it, but like right on the lower part of the lid, like right there. I'm just going to make it a bit more pigmented because I feel like I like the way that it's kind of diffused on some parts of the eye, but then on other parts it needs to be a bit more prominent. So just right on the lid, I'm just making it a bit more pigmented. This is turning into a very vampy look, which that wasn't really planned, that just happened. Okay, so I think that looks a little bit better, and then now we're gonna go into that Silver Fox shade that was like the silvery shade, obviously given the name. I'm gonna use that on my inner corner. I feel like that's not brightening up my inner corner as much as I want. So I'm gonna go ahead and put some over here just to make it consistent, but then I'll go back on top of it with something else. So I don't see another shade in here that I want to use on top of that shade. So I feel like I'll wait and I'll finish up the inner corner when I get to my cheek highlight, because I feel like what I'm going to use for that, I may go ahead and use it on top of the inner corner. So let's move on to the face. We'll finish up the eyes in a little bit. I feel like this video is going to be like the bulk of it is going to be the eyeshadow look. It was supposed to be, well, it is a full face tutorial, but I feel like I just spent a lot of time on the eyes. But let's move back to the face. I used to talk about this bronzer all the time. I used to use it all the time, but I've moved on to something else. But today I'm going to be using the Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer. This one is in the shade Endless Summer. Now that I'm holding this up like this, it's making me think that maybe I did use this relatively recently. Now I can't remember, but if I did, I know that I only used it once in the past like couple months or so, because I've been using the Charlotte Tilbury bronzer like crazy since I got it. But this, before I got the Charlotte Tilbury bronzer, this used to be like the only bronzer that I would use. So I'm often talking about how with my complexion, sometimes I feel like it's hard to find things that I can use because I have a cool cool undertone, I definitely prefer like a reddish tone bronzer. And I think a lot of people do, even people that have warm tones. I think a lot of people like red bronzers, but a lot of bronzers, they are like, they're yellow or golden and not necessarily red. Those yellow golden bronzers, they just don't work for me because I feel like they just clash too much with my skin tone, or with my undertone rather. So this one is really nice because it has like a subtle red undertone to it. And also hitting my nose. Then I'm just gonna soften that bronzer on the nose back up just a little bit so it doesn't look super snatched. So if you've been with my channel for quite some time, do you remember how I used to use this blush all the time? This is the Note Cosmetics blush in the shade Desert Rose. I used to use this like crazy, but again, with other stuff that I'm using today, I just don't know the last time I picked this thing up. So I definitely wanted to pull it out for today's video. I'm going to very lightly apply this today because I have a whole lot going on my eyes. So I don't want my blush to be like overpowering because I just don't want, like, you know, a whole lot going on my face. So that's super subtle. You may not even be able to tell that I just applied it, but I feel like that right there is enough because I just want, like, you know, a subtle blush on my face for today. But this, I used to love this stuff. Like, I used to use it every single time I did my makeup. But just like with other stuff, I just moved on to other things. I think before I apply my highlighter, I think I want to go back to, or not go back to, but I want to pick up my Sephora Microsmooth powder. So this is what I have been setting my face with lately. This isn't like a throwback for me. I just started using this within the past few weeks, but I've been using this kind of lately to set my face. So even though I did already set everything with the Maybelline powder, I feel like I want to use this as a finishing powder for today. This is actually a baked powder foundation, but I like using it as a finishing powder. So I'm just gonna dab back over everything. And I think when I do this, it helps to just like fuse everything together. And I think this just helps to like blend everything in without making stuff look muddy. Like, you can still see my blush, you can still see my bronzer, but they just kind of like blend in a little bit better when I do this step. Let me know if y'all think that that makes a difference, because I notice a difference when I do that. Okay, so now moving on to highlighter. So I kept going back and forth between my MAC highlighter. Let me show you the one that I was about to use for today. So this is the MAC Extra Dimension Skin Finish, and this one is in the shade Double Gleam. So again, for those of you who have been with my channel for a long time, you know that I used to use this thing like crazy. I was about to use this one for today because, again, I don't remember the last time that I used this, but instead I'm gonna go in with the Essence Pure Nude highlighter. This is another one that I use quite a bit, but haven't used it in a while. I picked this one for today simply because it's more subtle than the MAC highlighter, and again, I think it's gonna work out better because of the way that my eye look turned out. I think that I would do better with a more subtle highlighter anyway. This one is really good for like a natural glow type of highlighter. It's definitely not as natural as like a liquid highlighter. I feel like the liquid ones, just because they're liquid, they just blend into the skin better. But this one, because it's so subtle, it's kind of like the way that the light hits it. It just looks, you know, a bit more natural than some other highlighters that I have that have like more glitter or more sparkle in it. So I'm just going to use this on the usual places. And let me try putting this in my inner corner on top of that color that I didn't really care for, because this should lighten it up. Yeah, can you guys see that? This one looks better. This one just looks a bit brighter in my inner corner. Yeah, I think I like that better. So I'm setting everything with the Rimmel Fix and Go, Rimmel Stay Matte Fix and Go setting spray. This is a primer and setting spray. I do know that I used this kind of recently, but I've been using my e.l.f. setting spray a lot since I got it. So it's been, you know, a little minute since I used this. So I'm gonna go in with this one for today. . 。  . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . And these next two products are nothing new for me. My NYX Matte Liquid Liner and the Petite and Pretty Mascara. I use these all the time. So I'll do these off camera and I'll be right back. Okay, 20 minutes later, the eyes are done. So let's finish everything off with lips. My lip liner is nothing new to me. I use this here and there. This is the Color Icon Lip Pencil from Wet n Wild. This is in the shade Chestnut. I'm looking for a mirror. I couldn't find what I normally hold to put my lipstick on, so I was looking for a mirror. But anyway, this is the shade Chestnut, and it's like a reddish, like burgundy brick brown shade. So I'm gonna line my lips with this. And my lipstick is somewhat of a throwback. I just don't recall the last time I used this, but this is one of my favorites. This is Touchable Taupe from Maybelline. Nice nude color. So I am gonna finish everything off with that. I'm trying to think in my head if I'm gonna wanna go on top of this with a gloss, so I'll see in a minute. Okay, so I decided no gloss for today. I think I like the lips the way that they are now. I love a glossy lip. Like, that's been my lip of choice lately, but this definitely isn't a matte lip, but it's like a little bit of shine, but not too much. And I actually like it for today. I think it looks nice and toned down because there is a lot going on with my eyes. So with all of that being said, this is my finished look using a full face of Nothing New. So I really hope that y'all like it. Let me know what you think. I really hope that you enjoyed the video today. If you did, please let me know by giving me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave today, and I hope to see y'all back here for my next video. Until then, take care. Have a good one, y'all. Bye.